Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us once again on the State of Freedom.
The State of Freedom is a listener-supported podcast. We're committed to pursuing the truth about policymaking, decisions, and situations in Louisiana and at the national level that stand to impact our freedoms.
Please become a monthly supporter of the State of Freedom at freedomstate.us as we continue to expand the voice of liberty across Louisiana and beyond.
Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the State of Freedom. It's Thursday, August 14th. It's 10 a.m. I'm Danielle, and I'm joined by my partner in truth, Chris Alexander. We're coming to you live on Voice of the People USA radio and TV network on Rumble, X, YouTube, and Facebook. Today, we're going to get into some interesting things. We've had a couple people reach out to us, several actually, and say, hey, we never really got the full breakdown of the scorecard. How did the legislators end up doing this past session? So that's what we want to bring to you today. The scorecard has the good, the bad, and the ugly, and we will be giving you the highlights and the lowlights, and you will understand who is hanging out in the swamp. And
the swamp rats.
Yeah, exactly. There's some developments in Louisiana or lack of developments that we want to talk to you about as well toward the end. So please stay tuned for that. And before we get into it, let me play a quick ad. The secret to losing weight 2 times faster has gone viral. See the transformations hundreds of thousands of men, women, and teens are experiencing around the world with the Slenderize drops. These homeopathic hormone-balancing drops are proven to control appetite, support thyroid function, improve energy, boost mood, and increase metabolic rate. To learn more about the drops or other incredible natural wellness and lifestyle products, email me at danielle@freedomstate.us or visit the Shop Our Partners page at freedomstate.us. All right. Well, let's get into it with the scripture of the day. Today's passage is 1 Kings chapter 17, verses 1 through 6. And it says, Now Elijah the Tishbite, who was of the settlers of Gilead, said to Ahab, As the Lord, the God of Israel, lives, before whom I stand, surely there shall be neither dew nor rain these years except by my word. The word of the Lord came to him, saying, Go away from here and turn eastward, and hide yourself by the brook Cherith, which is east of the Jordan. It shall be that you will drink of the brook, and I have commanded the ravens to provide for you there. So he went and did according to the word of the Lord, for he went and lived by the brook Cherith, which is east of the Jordan. And I was reading that this morning, and it struck me, Elijah was faithful in the assignment that the Lord gave him. And he stayed connected to the Lord and was listening for the voice of the Lord. And the Lord provided for him supernaturally. Ravens brought him food, and he drank from this brook until it dried up. And then he provided for him another way. So let this be an encouragement today. If you live in connection with the Lord and you've heard from him about what it is you're supposed to be doing, then he'll be faithful to provide. But it does take obedience and effort on our part. Elijah had to move where the Lord instructed. He had to get up. He had to go to the brook when he was thirsty. He probably had to go outside to meet the ravens to get the food that they were bringing him. So don't be in disobedience to the Lord because you don't understand how the finances will work out or how the time will work out or how the pieces will come together. He will work out the details. Our job is to be obedient, to trust, and to seek him daily for further instruction.
Yeah, and we don't have all the answers for sure all the time, but Elijah was faithful. Do you think, Danielle, that there is a certain significance in people's names, the names that people have?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I do too. I have a son named Elijah, and he's truly got a huge heart, and very faithful, and just a wonderful human being. And I wonder if his personality is anything like Elijah, because if it is, then he's certainly in good company, and the Lord indeed made him well. But Elijah was such an amazing man of God, and I think that's why God was so benevolent toward him.
Yeah, he was faithful. He was really faithful. I mean, he was prone to despair, but he was faithful, and
Yeah.
and God met him where he was.
Yeah, it wasn't always an even path, but it certainly was a path directed by the Lord's hand for sure.
Yeah. All right, Chris. Well, do you want to get into some of this? I don't know. I guess record keeping, right? I mean, you did all this work. You went down to the legislature for 2 months and pounded the pavement. Talked to these legislators, inform them on the legislation, encourage them to vote the right way, and even suggested some improvements to legislation along the way. And as I've described it, I think, this really has been the sophomore year for this legislature, and they have behaved like sophomores in large part.
Yes, yes, with some notable exceptions.
Yeah.
No question about that. But about our scorecard generally, Danielle, first of all, LeCag does not rank every single vote on every single issue. There's 1,200, 1,300 bills going through that legislature in any session. And so we cull the bills that we believe are of most critical importance to liberty, to freedom,
Yeah.
both economic freedom, social freedom, and the things that we believe most affect ordinary, everyday Louisiana citizens. So we came up with about 35 or 40 critical bills that we believe represent where these legislators stand with respect to their constitutional fidelity. And it took me a while to find them, but we did, and we think we picked the right bills, and we ranked them. And the next point I want to make is this: it's not simply how they voted. That's not the only thing we consider. We give legislators extra credit if they had the courage to sponsor an important bill, and we detract points from legislators who may have co-sponsored a bad bill or were the primary sponsor of a bad bill. We also rank chronic absences. And we also rank whether or not a legislators had the courage to speak up publicly and boldly on an issue of profound importance to Louisiana citizens. So it's not just the up and down votes; it's their general tenor with regard to how they approach the Constitution and their loyalty to ordinary Louisiana citizens. That's our card, and we do not give anything away, nothing. We give credit where credit is due, and we detract and deduct when that is due as well. So it is a numbers deal with us. And, so I would suspect, Danielle, that when it comes to a real conservative scorecard based upon all of those factors that I just named, our scorecard is extremely accurate. And I will say tracks very closely generally with J.C. Harmon's scorecard. He does a scorecard every year, and we looked at his, and with a few exceptions here and there, our scorecard tracks close to his. So I'm excited about getting into this, and I think the citizens should be very excited about being able to have a record exactly of what their representatives and senators did on things that really matter to them.
Yeah. Well, I have to commend you, Chris, because it was a ton of work, not just to be in session. You were basically in session with the legislators as if you were a legislator. You probably did a lot of perhaps even more legwork than the legislators to get some bills across the finish line, and parsing through the legislation. At the beginning of the session, you and I sat down for hours and looked through what it was we thought was going to be most important. And of course, those are just the pre-filed bills. Like you said, there's over 1,200 bills that were filed. We can't have 1,200 opinions in a given session. It's just too much for one, 2, or 20 brains to handle. So we narrowed it down. And I think what we came to is really gives a great flavor for where people are standing when it comes to being in alignment with the Constitution, but also being in alignment with their constituents.
Exactly. And let me say this, Danielle, you're exactly right. Let me say this. Also, another thing that distinguishes our scorecard from other scorecards is the fact that we meticulously pay attention to committee votes as well.
Yeah.
Most scorecards track and rank only floor votes, but we track committee votes because that is often where bad legislation is advanced and where good legislation is killed. So you can't do a scorecard that is meaningful and really informative unless you pay attention to what's going on in those committees. And our scorecard takes that into account for sure.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And I guess before we get into it, maybe just a reminder, if people were listening to the show during the session, you're going to be very familiar with the bills that were on that ultimately ended on the scorecard, right? But some of the big topics were expropriation of private property for carbon capture, sequestration, the regulation of the solar industry, the the way that our election systems are procured, freedom of speech, insurance. There were quite a number of issues across the board, and I know, Chris, you'll get into them as we walk through how some of these legislators voted, uh, for better or for worse. But maybe just to start out, I guess we can start. Unless, do you want to add anything to that?
I was just going to say, yeah, the DEI. There's a
Yeah,
DEI
that's
bill, for
right.
instance, that Cameron Henry allowed to die on the Senate floor, and a foreign interference in our elections was a huge issue as well.
Yeah.
But I think that the issues and the bills that we came up with truly are the tip of the spear when it comes to what constitutionalists and conservatives care about.
Yeah, and just before we kind of start walking through this, one other point that I want to make is, we're going to highlight the A's and the B's and the D's and the F's. So the C's, if you don't hear your legislator's name, you can just assume they basically got a C. But some of the B's, I, every single one of these votes is incredibly important to the future of our state, to the way that we conduct our lives, to the government's interference in my personal life, your personal life. So I don't think we need to throw a party for anybody that got a B. That's not the point of this. I think the point is, we understand compromises have to take place. We don't necessarily agree with that. We do understand as well that the governor wields tremendous power in this state, and a lot of people had to make trade-offs, and some of those trade-offs end up kind of being a little bit of a mark on them personally, by the way they voted. So if your legislator scored a B, I think it's a great thing to go to them and say, look, why did you vote this way? And if they're straight with you, they're straight with you. You can understand, hey, I had to do this because the governor was going to do X to me. Then at least you got a straight answer, right? I'm not saying that's the right answer, but it's a straight answer. And you have to put yourself in their shoes at some point and say, look, I had to make the call.
And Danielle, that's exactly what Jay Galley did the other night. We'll get into this. He got a high B. He got an 88. He had two bad votes, and I was at a meeting the other night, LRA on the North Shore, and Jay Galley was presented with an award for some of the things he did during the session, and I think he should have received an award. He got an 88. He made some tough votes against the governor, which required courage, and we also give, like I said a little while ago, credit for that. But I asked him, there were two bills that he voted badly on, one of the voting bills and also that horrible cell phone bill. And he made no excuse for it. He said, I know those were bad bills. I shouldn't have voted for those bills. But then he explained that there are times when, in order to get something that you think is really, really important, sometimes you have to compromise on certain things. And I don't like that. That is the reality of it. So to some degree, I find that palatable, if he's trying to get something through. But bottom line is, he deserves credit for not making any excuses about it.
Yeah.
He said those were horrible bills, bad votes. And, I don't have any excuse other than what I just told you, Danielle. So I hope all legislators who are approached respond that way.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, maybe someone can convince me otherwise, but I don't think there's any excuse for carrying any bad bills. you may have to hold your nose and vote for it or vote against it, but you don't you don't have to put your name on it as an author.
Well, and Danielle, exactly, and that's why Michael Mellerin ended up with a I think a low C in our ranking, or one of the reasons, because he authored a horrible bill and
Yeah.
brought it through, that the 206. So anyway, we're going to get into all this, but I'm very excited about it.
Yeah, let's get into it. We're going to start with the best of the Senate. So, scoring the highest in the Senate were two people whose names are not going to be unfamiliar to our audience. They were Valerie Hodges and Blake Miguez. If you will recall, Senator Hodges brought SB 206, which was the bill that we considered the most important, the most critical. When this and the rest of the session could go away as a win. But of course, it didn't pass. But that's the one regarding foreign adversaries having, if they own property close to military installations, the military and the state would have the ability, I believe, to expropriate that land. And it also had an aspect to it where if there was any foreign nexus to the components of a voting equipment, that equipment would not be permitted to be used in the state. Chris, do you want to get into the votes by Senator Hodges and Senator Miguez?
Sure. Senator Hodges, she showed a lot of courage in her votes. She had the courage to vote against, for instance, that HB 148 that ended up passing, but it was the bill that the governor was pressuring everyone to vote for that creates basically a little fiefdom in the Department of Insurance for the Commissioner of Insurance to do whatever he wants, whenever he wants. And there was major pressure on both reps and senators to vote for that. And Senator Hodges stood against it and voted against it. She also, as you said, brought that extremely critical infrastructure bill that Comrade Miller, we'll get into that, gutted in the Senate Judiciary Committee. But she stood strong against a lot of criticism, unwarranted criticism. Took a lot of courage for her to bring that bill, and she responded so eloquently and effectively. So courage is rewarded with LeCag. The only bad vote that Senator Hodges had was on the HB 304. I'm sorry, it was on HB 206, which was the bill that allows the legislature to ratify election consent agreements through a joint resolution rather than through passing a law. And we thought that was a bad bill and not really a constitutionally appropriate way to pass legislation. But that was her only bad vote. She stood strong on everything else. A number of bills that required her to go against the governor. A 96 is well earned and well deserved for Senator Hodges. Very similar to Blake Miguez. Senator Miguez did a lot of very good things this session. Voted very similarly to the way Senator Hodges voted, and stood against that. Both Valerie Hodges and Miguez stood against that horrible SB 80, the bill that prohibits
free speech,
law-abiding citizens from conducting exit polls, but CNN gets to do it.
Yeah.
He also stood against that horrible insurance bill that Governor Landry was pushing. So he did a lot of things that were important. The only bad vote that Miguez had was that Miguez voted for Dixon McMakin's bill resolution to repeal a portion of the administrative code that requires multi-factor authentication and dual passwords on any system that counts our votes. And we thought, why would you want to do that? But Nancy Landry, as you know, so many of them, when Nancy Landry says jump, they say how high, and you and I are still trying to figure that out. But other than that, Senator Miguez was solid across the board and deserved the grade that he got for sure.
Yeah, and just a point that I think bears mentioning, he also brought a great bill in the Maha vein that was a great companion to Patrick McMath, Senator McMath's bill. that was ultimately signed by the governor, and to great fanfare with RFK Jr.'s visit. But Senator Miguez's bill was vetoed by the governor.
Exactly. Vetoed by the governor.
There's
And
got to be some political machinations in there, because there's no lack of duplicative bills that seem to make it through if the governor's on the side of the people.
Exactly. And one other that I told you he did right on the cell phone bill, and he voted, of course, for Alan Sebaugh's bill, bad faith bill, basically leveling the playing field on these bad faith claims that Governor Landry, a bill that Governor Landry ultimately vetoed. So Senator Miguez and Senator Hodges both demonstrated consistently that they have the capacity to oppose even a very powerful governor, and that counts a lot with us.
Yep. And speaking of people who have the fortitude to counter a powerful governor, while Senator Miguez and Senator Hodges were the only A's in the Senate with a score of 88, was Senator Alan Sebaugh, who has gone toe-to-toe with the governor in the post-session era, I guess.
Yeah, he did, and he voted the right way most of the time. The reason why Senator Sebaugh was not an A on this is because he voted yes on HB 577, which was a terrible election bill that vests so much authority in the Secretary of State. Again, one of her bills that vests plenary authority in her regarding the selection of our voting system, with very little checks and balances and very little transparency. That was one of the worst election bills I've ever seen. Senator Sebaugh voted for that, and he also voted for the for HB 206, which we talked about a minute ago. But other than that, Senator Sebaugh did very well. He actually voted for to repeal the resolution to repeal the security requirements in the voting system as well. So those three bills are why he's in the B.
Remind us, HB 206, remind us what that one is.
HB 206 is the bill that allows illegal election agreements to be ratified in the legislature through a concurrent resolution rather than through changing the law, which is required under the Constitution. Yeah. And so that was bad. Those three votes, everything else he did very well. And Senator Sebaugh also got a lot of credit for standing up publicly. He's the only public official in the state that I've seen, other than Treasurer Fleming, who has publicly opposed the governor on issues that are very important. Senator Sebaugh has done it, and again, he got specific credit for his courage in doing that from us.
Would you count Commissioner Tim Temple in their stead as well? I feel like
I would put Commissioner Temple in that category, yes. But obviously Temple's not a legislator, so we're not ranking him.
Right. The other thing that Senator Sebaugh did that I did want to mention is that he did kind of a very nasty line of questioning of Senator Hodges' SB 206, her foreign adversaries bill. I just remember he was a little condescending seeming in committee whenever that bill came through. He has been a proponent of voting machines and upgrading voting equipment to new computers. So I think that was kind of his. He was a little bit of a dog with a bone on that one.
And he actually did get a couple of points off for that, for not being of more assistance to Senator Hodges in that committee.
Yeah. All right.
So he's a B. A lot of people would say Sebaugh should be an A, but not. It is what it is.
It is what it is. All right. Well, the next score is an 86, and that was Robert Alain from down my way, and he had just a couple bad votes. I mean, we're seeing a trend here. The bad votes tend to be on the same bills, and those bills had a lot of political pressure around them.
Yes, and Alain voted the wrong way on reducing security passwords on the voting ballots. Also, he voted for the horrible HB 577, Nancy Landry's bill, which gives her way too much power. He voted the wrong way on HB 206, as we talked about a minute ago. And he voted the wrong way on the reason why he is not an 88. The reason why he's an 86 is because he voted the wrong way on that horrible cell phone bill. And, you know, that's you're not going to get an A from LeCag. Rarely. If that were the only bad vote he had, he probably could have still gotten an A, but it wasn't. There were several others. So he's at an 86, which is appropriate. He also, but again, he gets credit for on several votes for standing up and voting against the governor. And again, the big bill, Governor Landry's biggest bill of the session, Danielle, was that HB 148, the one that he will vest all this authority in the commissioner of insurance. And the reason why he wanted it so much was so when his policy initiatives fail, when all of these insurance reform bills that he was pushing don't achieve the objective that he's saying that they should achieve, which they're not going to do, then he can just blame the commissioner of insurance, because the commissioner of insurance has all this power. You know, Mr. Temple, you could have reduced the rates. You can do anything you want to do to relieve policyholders in the state of Louisiana, and you didn't do it. So it's a blame deal there, and that's why 148 was so important to the governor. And Alain stood against that and voted against that. So he got credit for that as well.
Yeah, good for him. All right. With scores of 83 and 82, respectively, Rick Edmonds and Bill Wheat.
Rick Edmonds got one of the things that jumps out at me about Rick Edmonds, Danielle, is that he got credit for defending Senator Hodges in the Judiciary Committee on SB 226 when she was trying to argue for her bill and how important it is that the military have authority to expropriate this property if it's located near military installations. And he understood it. He defended her. And so he came to her aid in there, and he got a lot of credit for that as well.
He may have been the only one to come to her aid.
He was the only one to come to her aid, but that stood out to us. He also voted for Senator Sebald's SB 111 to even the playing field on all these bad faith insurance claims, which Governor Landry, as you said, ultimately vetoed. He didn't want the bill, but Edmonds voted the right way on that. He voted the right way on HB 148. He voted against Governor Landry on Governor Landry's most important bill. Got big credit for us on that on his insurance bill. And he voted the right way on SB 80. SB 80 is the one where you and I don't get to do exit polls, Danielle, ever. Our free speech rights don't matter, but CNN gets to do them. Governor Landry wanted that. The Secretary of State wanted that. And Rick Edmonds stood against it and voted against it. So he is, by and large, he did a good job this session and had some examples of standing up to the governor. So I think his score is appropriate, a B.
Great. And then the last B of the Senate is my Senator, Big Mike Facey. He got an 80.
He got an 80. And, you know, some people might look and say, well, Senator Facey brought the geoengineering bill, and Senator Facey brought the fluoride bill, and he brought the ivermectin over the counter. And guess what? He got credit for all of that. And we applaud his efforts on that. And that, but he voted for HCR 1, which we've talked about. He voted for HB 577, Nancy Landry's election bill. He voted against HB 304, which requires an action when you're private company trying to seize somebody's land for carbon capture sequestration. The bill would have required that action to be brought in the parish where the property is located. That's a no-brainer to me. Senator Facey voted against that.
I know, and you know he has a pipeline business. I would remind him of that to his face.
Yeah, he voted for that horrible HB 206. And he voted for the cell phone bill. He voted for that. I mean, I can't. This is, by the way, for those of you who may be watching this for the first time, this cell phone bill was from Representative Glorioso that criminalizes law-abiding citizens from talking on their cell phone in their car, which to me is terrible infringement of our freedom, insulting to the intelligence of most law-abiding citizens, and will create a precedent for further infringement of our rights and freedoms. It's a terrible bill that we beat back 2 or 3 years in a row, and then it passes under a Republican-dominated legislature with a Republican governor. It's hard not to see the irony in all of that, but Senator Facey voted for that. So anyway, Senator Facey got a low B because of those critical votes that he made, but because of the credit we gave him for authoring some important legislation that we just talked about, the ivermectin bill, the fluoride bill, and the geoengineering bill, he is in the B range.
Yeah. And a good guy all around.
Hey, he is a good guy. He is a good guy. I mean, and responsive.
Yeah. Okay. Now the worst scored Republicans in the Senate, the D's and the F's. We'll start with the D's. And the first one is the Senate president. At 66, Senate President Cameron Henry.
Let's see here. Cameron Henry. Where is Cameron Henry?
I can tell you to start out, Chris, that he blocked a lot of good legislation from getting through. I think that's probably the main reason for his score, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. Cameron Henry, of course, he voted for to reduce the security in the ballot counters, the multi-factor authentication, Dixon McMakin's resolution. He voted for the Secretary of State's bill, basically making a queen of her when it comes to choosing our election system with no transparency. He voted for HB 206. He voted for the governor's bill, HB 148, that basically makes a king out of the Commissioner of Insurance. He voted for the cell phone bill. And let's see what else. He voted for SB 80, Senator Miller's SB 80, that bans free speech from regular citizens. And he voted, and importantly, as you said a minute ago, Danielle, he killed because he refused to call HB 685 on the Senate floor, which was Emily Chenevir's DEI bill that would ban all that Marxist garbage from our public institutions.
Yeah.
He voted, he would not call it on the floor. And he also failed to call HB 160 on the floor, which was Representative Kelly Dickerson's bill to require a complainant in an ethics filing against a person to disclose their identity. This is the United States of America, and at some point when you get accused of something in America, at some point you're entitled to know who's accusing you. And that it was a very good bill based on her own personal experience, and he didn't call it in the Senate. It passed the House, and he wouldn't call it on the Senate floor.
And two other things, Chris, I'm sorry. He also didn't bring up Emily Chenevir's bill that would have restored parental rights when it comes to the health of their minors, right? He could have made that come through.
Well, that was killed in the Senate Health and Welfare.
Oh, that's right. It got killed.
Yeah, that never got out of the Senate Health and Welfare Committee, and we're gonna get to that. But the last one, the third bill that Cameron Henry allowed to die on the Senate floor was, as you and I have talked about many times, Annie Spell's election bill that would have categorically prohibited any foreign non-citizen from donating to any election in the state of Louisiana, to a candidate, to a campaign, to a ballot proposition. It was categorical. It was a strong bill, and he allowed it to die on the Senate floor. So what did he get? A
66.
He got a 66, and you know, he's lucky to have gotten that, quite frankly.
Well, and I think the one that made the biggest waves and biggest headlines, Chris, you may have missed, which is the one that was going to make the primary procedures work in favor for Bill Cassidy, right?
It's in here. HB 592 is in here, and he was deducted for that. keep in mind, as you know, Danielle, it was his initiative based on his initiative that Caleb Klein-Peter brought an amendment to HB 592 in committee to do away with the second Republican primary to help Bill Cassidy get reelected to the U.S. Senate. These are Republicans doing this, and we definitely marked that. So, as I said, Cameron Henry, was it a D? Yep, 66
Yes.
D.
Yeah,
And like I
66.
said,
Yeah.
he's lucky to be sitting there, but he had some good votes, and I think it's an appropriate score for him. But look, he's the Republican Senate president, and he ends up with a D in his conservative ranking.
Yeah. And just a reminder to folks, he didn't have to take any votes hardly at all if he didn't want to, right? He made his voice known. Chris, he's essentially only required to vote in case of a tiebreaker, right?
Absolutely. He doesn't have to vote unless it's a tiebreaker. That's
So,
exactly right.
so the fact that he chose to be out front on these issues that are slap in the face to the Constitution and the people of the state who love the Constitution is noteworthy.
Yes, and the reason why he got a D instead of an F, a couple of reasons, is that he did stand against the governor on one bill. He voted for Senator Seaball's SB 111 to end the ambush of bad faith claims against insurance companies when they don't have an opportunity to invest a claim, and so he voted the right way on that. And let's see, was there anything else controversial that he did? Not. He voted he voted the right way on HB 304, Danielle, requiring expropriation actions to be brought in the parish where the property is located. And that was a big deal to us because property owners deserve at least not to be inconvenienced. They shouldn't have to travel all over the state to defend these expropriation actions. So I think that was a very good. He voted for. And that's about it for him. So those two or three things that I just said are why he wasn't an F.
Yeah. But there was one big fat F in the Senate, and that was Comrade Greg Miller. Oh, but you know what? We didn't even talk about, I skipped over the last D, and that's Caleb Klein-Peter. And you alluded to some of the reason that he scored down in the D range, but he scored a 65.
Yeah. He voted wrong on the election security bill. He voted wrong on the bill giving Nancy Landry total power in procuring the election system. He voted wrong on requiring expropriation actions to be brought in the parish where the property is located. He voted wrong on allowing consent agreements to be ratified through concurrent resolution. He voted wrong on Governor Landry's insurance bill, making a czar out of the insurance commissioner, which is a horrible bill. He voted wrong on the cell phone bill. He voted wrong on SB 80, which shuts down our speech. We can't do any exit polls. And he voted, and he also got points deducted for offering that amendment on HB 592 that you mentioned a few minutes ago, Danielle, to shut down the second Republican primary. That would have allowed, if it had passed, but we fought against it hard, that would have allowed Bill Cassidy to win one Republican primary with a plurality of votes and go straight into a Democratic runoff against the Democrat. It was Klein-Peter who was the mechanism of that bill. Now of that amendment. Now he said that he didn't draft it. He didn't have anything to do with it. He didn't know what it said. All these things. I don't know if I believe that. Bottom line is that is why he got the score that he got. Everything that we just said, with very few exceptions. Caleb Klein-Peter did exactly what the governor wanted him to do and exactly what Nancy Landry wanted him to do this session.
And remind me, Chris, but he's the chair of Senate and Governmental Affairs?
He's the chair of Senate and Governmental Affairs, yes.
So I would say, one, it makes sense why he's the chair of Senate and Governmental Affairs if he's going to do exactly what they want. And two, you should get points taken off if your leadership is this poor on issues that are directly related to your committee.
Exactly.
Chair.
And that's why he ended up with a 65, a middle D.
Yeah. All right. Well, how about Comrade Greg Miller down in the F zone at 49?
Greg Miller, you know, I'm trying to think of one. Well, his grade reflects, Danielle, that there was absolutely nothing that he did that was faithful to Louisiana citizens this session. Absolutely nothing. He voted the wrong way on every single thing. He was the author of SB 80, brought at Nancy Landry's behest, which shuts down the free speech of average, ordinary Louisiana citizens while protecting the speech of CNN and MSNBC.
Yeah.
He helped gut and kill Senator Hodges' bill. In fact, he was the spearhead of that, SB 226 in Jude A. That again would have allowed the military to expropriate property that poses a threat to our critical infrastructure if it's owned by foreign adversaries. He also helped gut important election provisions in that same bill that would have prohibited Nancy Landry from going forward with the purchase of electronic voting machines until Trump's EOs come back, which have ordered an investigation into all electronic voting systems. He helped gut that. And then on the floor, he helped completely kill what was left of SB 226. That wasn't enough for him. So he is one of these guys who, and as you said, I think a previous show, Danielle, this is not the same Greg Miller that existed last session. I think he did quite well last session. In fact, he was doing so well that he didn't even come up on our radar screen, which he would have if he had been doing some bad things. But this year he has well earned your moniker for him, the comrade.
Yeah,
the comrade. So,
or you could call him Nancy Landry's water boy.
Or Nancy Landry's water boy. Exactly. And so that is where we are on Senator Miller. I want to make sure I'm not missing anything here. And of course he got points off for bringing the SB 80.
Yeah.
So not just voting for it, but authoring it. Major points.
As he should. Chris, well, our friends at We the People are in the chat, and they said this is the best conservative podcast in Louisiana. Thanks, We the People. I bet that's April watching. So, hey, thanks for watching this morning. Before we get into...
I love it. I love April, even if we're not in the month of April.
Me too. I love her year round. Before we get into the best of the house, let's break for a quick ad. If you're looking to invest in physical precious metals or convert your 401k to a precious metals backed IRA, please consider making your investment with our trusted partner, MetalStacks. Their prices regularly beat the big sites, and they have no credit card fees or minimums. Shipping is free for orders over $500. Just visit metalstacks.com/dwalker or get there from our website, freedomstate.us. If you're interested in the IRA conversion, drop me a message at danielle@freedomstate.us and I can get you connected with their white glove service. Awesome. Yeah, definitely check out MetalStacks. They are fantastic.
Hey, did we definitely check out MetalStacks? Did we mention Bill Wheat?
No, we didn't.
Okay, I definitely want to mention.
You know what? I think I gave you both names at the same time, but we skipped over them by accident.
Okay.
So please go ahead and give him credit.
Bill Wheat, who has been disappointing on some things in the last couple of sessions, did reasonably well, certainly relative to how some of the others did. He ended up with an 82 because he voted the right way on several things that were very, very important. He voted the right way on HB 148. That bill, the way we graded HB 148, because we understand what a dagger it is in the heart of real insurance reform in Louisiana. When you vest total authority in a commissioner of insurance with no accountability, he has total authority to raise rates, lower rates, increase premiums retroactively, decrease premiums retroactively, without ever being tied to any actuarial standard, any market condition whatsoever. He can make a purely political decision with total power and no accountability. And that is going to gut insurance reform in the state of Louisiana. And that's why that bill was so important. HB 148. Bill Wheat voted the right way on that. He stood against the governor on that, which surprised me, frankly, because I didn't know that he had the backbone to do that. And he made the right vote on that. Even though it passed, he made the right vote. And so he got a lot of points for us from that. He also voted the right way on HB 304, requiring expropriation actions to be brought in the parish where the property is located. He did that right. And he, let's see, where else? What else are we on here? Oh, let's see. Very importantly, he voted the right way on SB 19, the cell phone bill, which is a huge, just an absolute abomination to me. Yeah. When you're telling law-abiding citizens that they can't talk on a cell phone in the car. And that was part of Governor Landry's, I don't know if I mentioned this before, part of his insurance reform package. Yeah. Senator Pat Connick told me specifically that Landry was putting all kinds of pressure on everybody to pass that horrible cell phone bill. Well, Bill Wheat voted the right way on it, voted against it. So he deserved the 82 that he got for standing several times against the governor. He wasn't perfect by any means, but I think he earned his 82, his low B.
Yeah, he did. He earned it. And you know, what's remarkable, Chris, is some of these people have surprised us for better or for worse, right? Because we supported his opponent in the election, right? In 23. But here he is coming out pretty well. And then there are people that we supported who really turned out to be people who either weren't who they said they were, or they don't have a whole lot of spine.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And I'm telling you, again, all of this is relative. Should we be extending accolades to Republican senators in the state of Louisiana for scoring a low B on the LeCag scorecard? Normally we wouldn't be, but when you look at his ranking compared to some of these other Republicans and some of the couple of the courageous votes that he did take, I want to mention this about Wheat as well, Danielle. SB 111, as we talked about, Senator Sebaugh's bill to clean up all these bad faith claims that insurance companies are having to pay. That was one of Governor Landry's. That was Alan Sebaugh's bill that Governor Landry was staunchly opposed to, and Senator Wheat voted for it nonetheless. So that's the third bill this session in which Wheat stood against the governor. Now, he wasn't vocal. He wasn't down there shouting from the mountaintops. That's not his personality. But on several hugely significant bills, he voted the right way.
Awesome. All right. And in the chat, Chabby says, thank you, Chris and Danielle. Thank you, Chabby. Thanks for listening. Thanks to all the listeners. We'd love for y'all to get involved in the chat. The chat doesn't always, I don't always get to see everybody's comments. It depends on the platform you're commenting on. So please comment, and if we don't see you during the show, we'll try and come back and say hi afterward. But let's move to the best of the house, Chris. You ready for that?
The best of the house. Before we go on, I want to tell you the reason why Wheat was not a middle or a high B was because he voted for Nancy Landry's SB 80 to kick ordinary citizens out of voting precincts, not being able to exercise their free speech rights there. And that's my least favorite bill of this entire session. Yeah. It enrages me to this day. And that's why Wheat was not, a middle or a high B.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you talked to the ladies in Shreveport? Are they going to do some exit polling or apply to exit poll in this upcoming election?
Well, I'm going to encourage them to. I haven't spoken to them yet, but these ladies are not wallflowers. Believe me, Susan Barnesfather, Adele Schaeferman, those folks, let me tell you what, they're not pushed around by anybody.
Well, if they're watching, if they're in the chat, y'all let us know. We'd
love to hear from you. I love those ladies. Like I said, I'm from Shreveport, and my family's known these ladies for 30, 40 years. My parents knew them, and you don't get any finer people than this. And that's one of the reasons, Danielle, why this bill enrages me so much and why I take it personally, because we have a Secretary of State who's sitting in a committee room calling these ladies basically criminals. She said, I could have had them arrested if I had wanted to, but I chose to take the high road and come to the legislature and just get legislation passed through Comrade Greg Miller.
Well,
But
isn't that the opposite of the truth, though? Because if she could have gotten them arrested but didn't want to, then why does she need to pass a law to arrest them?
Well, exactly. That's such a great point. And the bottom line is that's a total lie because they weren't doing anything wrong.
Right.
They weren't doing anything wrong. You and I know exactly why she wanted that bill so badly. It's because she doesn't want the data that ordinary citizens get when they conduct real exit polls, get real data, and compare how they say they voted against the data being spit out by these computers, because she knows that things are being flipped and manipulated. That's
Yeah.
what she's scared of. That's
Yeah.
the bottom line.
It is the bottom line. All right. Well, okay. Now we'll move on to the House. This is going to be a little bit of a longer episode, folks, because here we are at 50 minutes and we've just gotten through the Senate. Of course, the House is much, much bigger, but we can move through some of these kind of quickly.
We can move through these quickly, Danielle, but make sure that everybody knows that legislators that we don't specifically mention here probably got a C. And you probably said that earlier, Danielle, probably got a C. And of course, you can find all the rankings and all the analysis at lcag.org.
Yeah. Chris, why don't you start out with who got the only perfect score for us all session, and that's Representative Cathy Edmonston.
Representative Cathy Edmonston, the only 100. She voted the right way on every single issue that matters to constitutional conservatives in Louisiana, every single time. I can't tell you the number of times, Danielle, when I was looking through votes during the session saying, God dog it, every single Republican voted against this good bill. Nope. Representative Edmonston voted the right way. Or every single Republican voted for this garbage. And then I'll say, no, Representative Edmonston voted the right way. Literally across the board, she did everything the right way, from the cell phone bill to the horrible Nancy Landry's horrible election bill that every other Republican voted for, to Governor Landry's horrible insurance bill, making the insurance commissioner a czar. She just did the right thing every single time. And, that is why we have publicly recognized Representative Edmonston for being, just a great patriot and a great conservative.
Yeah, she's been a star the entire time she's been in there. Chris, what does it cost her? Where does she stand with the governor now? Do you have any insight?
I have no idea. And, it's obvious that, she certainly doesn't go out of her way to get crossways with the governor. I mean, she's a very delightful lady, but she just votes based upon her conscience and based upon what's in the best interest of her constituents. And she does not yield to the governor's agenda if it's inconsistent with what she feels is in the best interest of her constituents. And she's been that way really since the beginning of her career.
She has. Similarly minded people would be the two that got scored 98, Representative Beryl Amedee and Representative Rodney Schermerhorn. Both of them were also excellent this session and have pretty much been pretty excellent the whole time as well.
Excellent across the board. The reason why Representative Amedee did not get a perfect score, a 100, was because she voted for HB 577, which is the bill that gives Nancy Landry plenary authority to choose whoever she wants as a vendor for our election system. Maybe she didn't fully understand the bill, but the bottom line is it was one bad vote. And maybe it was one of those votes that she felt like she had to make if she was going to have any chance of getting HB 371 through, which was a powerful religious freedom bill that she passed and has now been signed. So, it's hard for me on the worst day to criticize Beryl Amedee because I've seen her stand like a patriot, sometimes completely alone, more times than once. So a well-deserved 98, and she would have gotten a perfect score if it hadn't been for that one vote on 577.
Yep. And what about Rodney Schermerhorn? Was his bad vote the same or is it a different one?
Let's see here. Schermerhorn, one of the reasons why Schermerhorn scored so high, Danielle, was because he not only did he support all the carbon capture sequestration legislation, but he brought a couple of very powerful bills in the House Natural Resources Committee. If they had passed out of House Natural Resources Committee, we wouldn't have eminent domain in Louisiana right now for carbon capture sequestration. You couldn't seize private property in order to put these injection wells and these pipelines on property. It was a powerful bill that he fought for. Unfortunately, as we'll get to some of these other voters, House Natural Resources Committee killed his legislation along with a lot of other good CCS legislation. So he got a lot of credit not only for standing on behalf of citizens against this racket, but for bringing several items of legislation that were very good and very powerful and fighting for that legislation. So that's a big part of the reason why he did so well. And the only bad vote, Danielle, couple of bad votes that he had were one of them was on 577. He voted for the bill we've been talking about with Landry. And that is
the one that gives her undue power, huh?
The power one that gives her procure. Yeah. Basically what it says is you don't have to go through a competitive bidding process anymore. You don't have to be transparent anymore. You can do what's called an invitation to negotiate, and you can extend an invitation to negotiate to one vendor, a vendor who you want, and ultimately award a contract to them. That's not transparency. That's not checks and balances. That's not accountability. So that was his only bad vote. And again, back to our original theme, Danielle, it's amazing how the Secretary of State's bidding is done so reflexively by almost all of our legislators and senators when she wants something. And I'm still trying to figure out, as you are, why that is the case. I think it may be because she controls the levers of the election. Maybe somewhere inside they know these elections can be manipulated electronically, and they simply don't want to be on her bad side. I don't know what the reason is.
Yeah. I've asked some legislators about it, and I don't necessarily think that the point that they're making is the right one, which is that they defer to her because she's kind of the issue expert on the matter. And I'm like, you know what? It's your responsibility. You represent a large group of people. It's your responsibility to understand the issues yourself. You don't just defer to her. And furthermore, I didn't see that many legislators deferring to Commissioner Temple whenever he had his legislative package. I think the deference tends to be to power, not to expertise when it comes to those kinds of votes. And I'm sorry, that's just how I feel about it.
Oh, I agree. Oh, I couldn't agree with you more. Schermerhorn also got a lot of points for voting in favor of HB 608, which was Kim Coates' very powerful, strong geoengineering bill on the House floor, which failed on the House floor. But it was a good bill, and Rodney Schermerhorn was one of the Republicans who voted for it. So he did the right thing there.
Yeah, 100%. Next up are the 96s, and there are two of them, Brett Guyman and Danny McCormick, Chris.
Yeah, Brett Guyman also, Danielle, got a lot of credit for bringing CCS bills. He is one of those guys who is just, his temperament and his demeanor are very even keel. He never gets too high or too low, whereas, others like Danny McCormick, he can be, a bit more emotional. But Brett Guyman brought, again, the chairman of the House Natural Resources Committee. He encouraged his colleagues to vote for the good CCS bills. He brought a very good CCS bill that ultimately did not get through the House, but he was able to put some of the provisions of that bill on eminent domain, on carbon capture sequestration, into another bill. It was really brilliant what he did to end up giving us some protection against this CCS racket. He also brought HB 615, which would have, if it had passed, failed on the House floor, which is why some of the other Republicans got hit on. But HB 615 would have required any solar generation development, solar facility developments, to be permitted and regulated locally within local parishes and not imposed statewide on people so we don't have a repeat of this carbon capture sequestration racket. It was a very good bill that he actually talked about on our show, Danielle, when he came on the State of Freedom. As you know, it was a good bill, but was defeated on the House floor, which was reprehensible to me.
And Chris, I also want to mention about Brett Guyman. His chairmanship of the House Natural Resources Committee was very, I would say, was stellar. He went out of his way to make sure that every single person that wanted to speak on the issues specifically related to carbon capture sequestration and the regulation of it, and the imposition that it's been on the people against our will, he made sure, didn't they? Like he held hearings until midnight or something, so people could speak from the heart about how they felt about this. And I just think that's so commendable, because not every committee's run that way.
Not at all. And Danielle, he said, if you remember, he said at the very beginning of the session, he said, I will stay up here. He said it on our show too. He said, I will sit up here until midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning because of the importance of this issue. I don't care what I have to do. Every citizen who wants to be heard for this committee is going to be heard. And as you and I both know, that's not always the way those committees are conducted.
Yeah.
But proud of Brett Guyman for what he did under some very difficult circumstances. The only reason why he didn't get a perfect score, Danielle, was because of a couple of votes, as everybody else, on the a couple of those election bills, which, again, it's Nancy Landry. We don't need to beat a dead horse when it comes to Nancy Landry. Many of the people who got B's instead of A's, or C's instead of B's, or D's instead of C's, it was because of Nancy Landry's package of bills that very few of them seem to be able to say no to.
Yeah. Do you want to get into Danny McCormick? He also was a 96.
Oh, yeah. Danny McCormick, ace across the board, 96. He did the right thing across the board, stood up to the governor, as Brett did on all those other bad bills. He had one bad vote, and I believe it was on the 577, Nancy Landry's election bill, one of those bills. But on the cell phone bill, he was solid. On Sebaw's insurance bill, he was solid. On standing against Governor Landry's desired investiture of great power in the insurance commissioner, he stood against that. So McCormick is a true patriot. And really, if I had to name one legislator, Danielle, who was the most vocal about the core foundational principle of private property when it comes to this CCS racket, it was Danny McCormick. He got in a number of exchanges with industry in committee on that very, very issue, and how critically important it is that we protect and preserve private property in this state. It means a lot to him, and he has his finger on the pulse of the grassroots across this state. I guarantee you.
Yeah, he does. And Chris, with the number of votes that good people took, consistently good voters took on that Nancy Landry HB 577 that we keep referencing as the Achilles heel for some of these folks, it's worth us going back and just seeing, how was it presented? How was it couched in the little preview? I can't remember what they call that right now. The digest, how was it couched in the digest? Because a lot of times the digest isn't really an accurate reflection of what's in the bill. It's probably quite a long bill. Maybe they didn't have time to read it. And then also, what was the presentation of the author about the bill? Because I think those are important things, because I don't think that Representative Danny McCormick and so many of these other reps and senators would have voted for something that was, I wouldn't think that they would have knowingly voted for something that would have just, basically strapped Nancy Landry's foot to the gas pedal when it comes to purchasing these machines.
Well, I think there's two. Well, first of all, I testified in both committees against 577. Danny McCormick is not a member of either one of those two committees, so he wasn't there when that happened. And I'm sure it was presented on the House floor just as another option for the Secretary of State. That's the way she presented it the whole way through. She said, all this is doing is giving me the option to go to this invitation to negotiate. I could still go through the broad competitive bidding process. This is just an option for me to use, and we're still going to be transparent, and we're still going to do things about it. She has a way of couching things in language that makes it sound largely innocuous. Oh, this is just a sort of a technical cleanup here. It's just giving me some authority that as a Secretary of State that I need in order to do what I need to do. But so I would be willing to give Danny the benefit of the doubt on this. Maybe he didn't really understand the full implications of this bill and what it means.
Yeah. All right. Next up, 95. Another A rather. Sorry, Gabe Firment.
Yeah, Gabe. One of the reasons, whenever I see Gabe, Danielle, he voted the right way across the board on almost everything. I gave Gabe a lot of credit because it was Gabe who stood up on the House floor and openly challenged HB 148, Governor Landry's most important bill of the session, to give all this power to the insurance commissioner so he can blame the insurance commissioner when his insurance reform package doesn't come through. Gabe Firment stood up and explained why that was such a horrible bill, why it will keep insurance companies out of the state of Louisiana, why it'll probably keep normal citizens from wanting to come to the state of Louisiana, and why it will gut any real effort to reform insurance in the state. He stood up openly and opposed the governor on the House floor. So he got a lot of points for that. And again, with the exception of a vote on Landry's election bill, it's impossible, by the way, Danielle, for anyone to get a perfect score with LeCag if you vote even for one terrible bill. You're not going to get 100. You may get close, but you're not getting 100. And he voted for a couple of one of Landry's election bill, Nancy Landry's election bill. So he's at a 95, but by and large, Gabe Firment stood strong and did the right thing.
Yeah. Next, and even though the scorecard is weighted, I think very appropriately, it's important for people to remember some people had more opportunities to vote for or against good or bad bills, depending on what committee they sat on, because they had the opportunity in committee where a lot of people, if it failed in committee, then the rest of the House, for instance, doesn't have the opportunity to vote on that. So there's nothing that we can score them on, right? Just a reminder. Yeah. And then likewise, so the people who sit on the committees, House Natural Resources Committee, House Governmental Affairs Committee, I think those were probably two of the House Municipal Affairs, my least favorite, most unconstitutional committee. The people who sat on the
I know it is.
On those committees, and perhaps even the Commerce Committee, but I would say definitely House Natural Resources and House and Governmental Affairs, the people who sit on those committees had the opportunity to take the most votes that we scored on. I think that's a fair representation, right, Chris? So some of these people are able to score higher because they just took fewer votes, period, based on their committee assignments.
And also the counter to that, score lower. Because they had more votes. I mean, if they're not absent when they should have been there to vote, and if they are not on the committee that's voting, then how do you can't score them in that instance?
Yeah. Okay. Did we talk about Philip Tarver yet? He got a 94.
No. Philip Tarver did very well, and he did. By the way, Danielle, the only reason why Philip Tarver did not get 100 was because he again voted for Nancy Landry's election bill, and he also voted for 206, which was another one of her election bills. Other than that, he did fine. I mean, he did the right thing across the board. Every bill that Governor Landry wanted, that was not good, he voted against it, and he voted for the good things. He voted against the cell phone bill. He voted for Alan Sebaugh's bad faith bill in insurance. So he did the right thing. And like I said earlier, we're always going to give credit to legislators who demonstrate that they can oppose a very powerful governor in the way they vote. Because when I tell you, Danielle, a couple of legislators have told me, you would be shocked, absolutely shocked, if you were to observe the pressure that is put on these legislators to vote the way the governor wants them to vote.
Yeah.
It's a wonder any of them are ever able to oppose him. So I admire the ones who do, especially the ones who do it relatively consistently, like
Yeah.
Tarver.
Agree. Okay. For a score of 93, and Chris, maybe we can call an audible on this, but there's a lot of B's. So maybe, I don't know, maybe we might need to skip over the B's and just do give the scores for the A's, and then give the scores for those who were at the real bottom of the barrel.
Or you could just,
I can run through them even.
or you could just name the ones who got the B's and put the score, and then our listeners can go to lcag.org and get more information.
That's a great
point.
I
think they probably would want to know what the score is.
Yeah, that's a great point. Okay, we can do that. So let's definitely get through talking about the A's. So Kelly Dickerson with a 93.
Kelly Dickerson had a great session. She did the right thing. She voted again for a couple of Nancy Landry's election bills, but she got a lot of credit because she took a lot of heat, especially in the Senate Governmental Affairs Committee, for bringing HB 160, which is the bill we talked about earlier, Danielle, that would require a complainant in serious ethics complaints to disclose who the hell they are. And I just think it's fundamentally un-American for someone to be able to bring a serious complaint against a Louisiana citizen and be able to conceal their identity throughout the entire process. I think that's chicken. Well, I don't believe that is appropriate transparency in the state of Louisiana. Dickerson brought that bill, and it passed in the House overwhelmingly. Then it gets over to the Senate, gets out of committee, gets to the Senate, and Cameron Henry lets it die on the floor. But Representative Dickerson got a lot of credit from us for bringing that bill, and absolutely deserved an A. I think she's doing an overall very good job as a legislator.
Yeah. Well, I think some of the bills that perhaps the governor did not want to put his veto pen on, Cameron Henry had the responsibility for letting die.
I guarantee you there was collusion there. There's no question about it. No question about it, including the HB 590. Because what kind of position would Governor Landry be in if he had a bill on his desk to categorically prohibit foreign donations to Louisiana elections, and he had to veto that? So Cameron Henry did the dirty work on that. You're exactly right, Danielle.
Yeah. So our government is run like a mob. All right.
On a good day.
Okay. Scores of 91 on a happier note, Kim Coates and Ray Cruz.
Both did an excellent job. Cruz had 2 or 3. I think he voted for 3 of Nancy Landry's 2 Nancy Landry's election bills, and then Dixon McMakin's resolution. But Cruz did the right thing. Other than that, across the board, Cruz stood up, and I was proud of this. He stood up and challenged Beth Billings on the House floor, that carried SB 80 on the House, the one that says, "Oh, you don't get to go do any, exit polls if you're a citizen," and said, "Why can't you just treat everybody the same? Why are we making a law distinguishing between ordinary citizens when it comes to conducting exit polls and bona fide media? What difference does it make? Why do citizens get less First Amendment protection than news organizations?" She couldn't answer the question. Cruz exposed the bill for the absolute piece of garbage it was, and of course voted against it. And again, voted the right way on everything else, with the exception of those 3 election bills, which are significant. Don't get me wrong, which is why he was a 91. And a low A.
Yeah. And he also carried both last year and this year of note to our viewers, the gold and silver as legal tender, and as, what was the other one, Chris? Transactional currency was the one he tried to get through. And I think ultimately he's taking like one tiny bite at a time, because our legislature is, I mean, just bows to the bankers is what the Commerce Committee does anyway.
Absolutely. And I'm very glad that you brought that up, Danielle, because we did give Representative Cruz very significant credit for bringing the gold and silver bill. Unfortunately, people like Kim Carver and others on the House Commerce Committee killed his legislation, and he had to amend it. It's still something, but it wasn't what it would have been if it had not been gutted largely by Kim Carver and other members of House Commerce, which is one of the reasons why Kim Carver ended up with a not a very good grade. That and a number of other things.
Yeah. Did you touch on Kim Coates's voting
Oh,
record, Chris?
what her score? Let's see.
She's a 91. She is the same as Ray Cruz.
Yeah, similar votes to Ray Cruz. We gave her credit for bringing a very strong geoengineering bill. She got beaten up on the House floor because of it. Her geoengineering bill is actually significantly stronger than Senator Facey's bill, which did pass and get signed. But she got beat up on that bill.
Can you imagine, Chris, if our session would have been 2 months later after that horrific situation in Texas with the flooding? I bet Kim Coates's bill would have passed.
It would have changed everything, wouldn't it, Danielle?
I think it would have, because they wouldn't have been able to put their put their heads in the sand and pretend like it wasn't happening and act like she's a straight lunatic. And also, wasn't it was Augustus Dorico, was it him directly who came and lobbied against it, or was it someone that was on his staff?
The guy they call the Rainmaker.
Mm-hmm.
I think that
his company is, yeah.
I know what the guy looks like. I don't know exactly what his name is, but her bill passed unanimously out of House Committee, House Natural Resources, and got to the House floor, and then Lobby comes in. Lobby, a business organization, comes in and objects to it. So she amends the bill to remove items that are objectionable to them, and the House, and they still oppose it. So the House still votes against her bill, against Louisiana citizens. But she got a lot of credit from us for bringing that bill. It's very important.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and then the last A's of the day in the House are Peter Egan and Dodie Horton, with both got a score of 90.
Yeah, and Peter Egan is one of my favorite, actually, legislators. He doesn't talk that much. He's kind of a quiet guy, but did the right thing most of the time. And Dodie Horton also is typically a very reliable conservative vote. We gave Dodie Horton also some credit for co-authoring HB 400, Emily Chenevir's bill, which suffered an unbelievably ignominious defeat on the Senate side in committee because of really garbage objections that could have been amended in committee, but they used it as an excuse to kill her bill, with the bill that would require parents to know when their minor children are going to receive medical treatment or medical services and that sort of thing. You'd think that'd be a no-brainer in the state. Bottom line is, Dodie Horton was a co-author with Emily Chenevert on that. She got a lot of credit on that. She voted wrong on some of the election bills again, but so I think the 90 is an appropriate score for her.
Yeah. All right. Let me run through the B's, and Chris, if there's anything you want to stop me on, I'll give a pause so you can stop if you want to comment on any of these folks for particularly commendable or egregious votes. Yeah. With an 89, Roger Wilder. 88 was Emily Chenevert and Jay Galley. And I think you mentioned Jay's upfrontness about taking some bad votes as trade-offs, basically.
Yeah. Jay, 577, Landry's election bill, and then the cell phone bill, and he owned it.
Yeah. With an 87, Josh Carlson and Lauren Ventrilla. 86 was Shane Mack. 83 was DeWitt Carrier. I think his claim to fame was being willing to switch his vote when he heard loud and clear from his constituents about his CCS votes.
Actually, DeWitt Carrier voted the right way from the very beginning.
Oh, did he?
House Natural Resources Committee. It was Jason DeWitt
who
switched the vote
Okay.
on a couple of bills. But DeWitt Carrier was consistent and vocal in favor of the carbon capture sequestration bills. A very different DeWitt Carrier from a year ago or 2 years ago when I
Yeah.
was getting in exchanges with him before the House Natural Resources Committee because he couldn't understand the concern about private companies taking private property for CCS. But he did hear from his people after we had that exchange. And this session, he was strong against carbon capture sequestration.
Awesome. And then with 82, Mike Bayham, Julie Emerson, and Francis Thompson. 81 was Michael Mellerin. Did you want to mention something about him?
Michael Mellerin voted the right way a lot of the time. He got major points off for bringing HB 206, which we believe was originally intended to allow Cleo Field to return to the U.S. Congress through
That's
a consent agreement. And we thought that was absolutely sinister. And so he got major points off of that. Fortunately, we were able to keep that from happening through an amendment on the Senate side. But Mellerin, and he also voted the wrong way on a couple of other important bills. So, but you can find out all about him. But that was a big deal to us that he would have brought HB 206, especially in light of what the objective of that bill originally was.
Yeah. And some of the names that are going to be in the worst of the House are probably going to surprise people. I'll run through them. And then I guess, Chris, when we get to the Fs, if you want, I don't know how we want to do this. Just comment along the way if you want.
Yeah.
Okay. With a 68, Bo Boye, who's tended to be pretty conservative a lot of the time, but this year he got some real hits.
Yeah, Boye. Hold on a second. This is important because he's the chairman. Boye voted against Danny McCormick's HB 75, which would have simply protected landowners who don't voluntarily give their land away for carbon capture sequestration through, so they are forced to give it up. They don't get penalized in the amount of money that they're going to be compensated for their land. They would be treated just as well as a person who immediately entered into what's called the unit, voluntarily giving up their land. It was Danny McCormick's bill, and Boye voted against that on the floor.
He's committee chairman of what committee?
Well, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, he's the chairman of House Governmental Affairs.
Okay.
But anyway, so he voted the wrong way on that. He also voted against Kim Coates's geoengineering bill on the floor that we talked about a few minutes ago. He voted for all of Nancy Landry's election bills. He voted against the requiring expropriation actions to be brought in the parish where the property is located. He voted for Governor Landry's horrible insurance bill 148. He voted for SB 80, the horrible cell phone bill. He voted for, he voted the right way on that. And he voted, so almost everything that we believe in, he voted the wrong way on.
Well, and then it gets worse from there. So with 67, were Dennis Bamberg, Daryl Desautels, Michael Eccles, and your representative Dixon McMakin. I know you mentioned Dixon brought he carried some bad legislation this session.
Yeah, he did. He brought so many things that Dixon did this session were just terrible, from, bringing a bill to gut the autonomy of the Republican Parish Executive Committee in East Baton Rouge Parish, to, a bill designed to increase the governor's appointment authority and power. I was quite surprised. But
how many of his bad bills that he authored passed? Just that HCR one, right?
Yeah, just the HCR one got through.
Okay.
But he voted for everything that we've been talking about here. He voted the wrong way. Everything.
And then next, with a score of 66, Philip deVilliers, Speaker of the House. He went out of his way to take some bad votes when he didn't have to weigh in. So he was definitely making a point. about some of those votes. I think they were on both sides, Chris. I think it was both on some of the election stuff, if I'm not mistaken, but definitely on the carbon capture stuff.
No doubt about it. I mean, he voted wrong on. Oh, yes, he voted wrong on McCormick's bill to protect landowners when they are forced to give up their property as far as being compensated. He voted wrong on, let's see here, all of the election bills, all of the geoengineering stuff. He voted the wrong way. He voted the wrong way on Brett Guyman's bill to give local autonomy on solar development, voted against that. He voted, I mean, it's just amazing. He voted for Governor Landry's bill on the insurance, making the commissioner a czar. Wait a minute, did he actually? Yeah. So it's just one of these deals where it just is what it is. And I would encourage everybody to go up and look at our scorecard and just see exactly how these people voted. And all you have to do is click on the bill. It'll tell you exactly what the bill does. And also on our scorecard, Danielle, they can go up and there's something you could hit to say, look at your representative, put your zip code in or whatever, and you can find out, just go to your rep or your senator.
Yeah, absolutely. And one point, Chris, that you've made to me off air is that you did give DeVilliers a lot of credit because he let the bills get to the floor, whether he liked them or not. They got to the floor of the House, whereas they did not get to the floor of the Senate.
That's exactly right. And so the reason why he's not an even lower D is that he did allow votes to be taken place on the House floor, full record votes, which, as you and I have talked about, is very valuable to us.
Yeah.
And that's record votes is very valuable to us because it's how we hold people accountable on how they vote. So that's really important to us. Unlike Cameron Henry, who allowed multiple bills to die on the Senate floor without a vote. So that was the difference between Cameron Henry and Philip DeVilliers. Yep. That's the why Cameron Henry is sitting at an F and Philip DeVilliers is sitting at a D.
Sitting with Philip DeVilliers at 66, I can't remember if I said Wayne McMahon is also a 66. 65 were Kim Carver and Foy Gadberry. 63, Vinnie St. Blanc from down my direction. 62, Vincent Cox, Troy Hebert, Joe Stagney, and Brian Glorioso. And I also want to mention in their company was a Democrat. And there are Republicans who have scored much lower than 62 folks, if y'all want to be embarrassed about the voting of people in this legislature of quote unquote conservatives or at least quote unquote Republicans. There were some really horrific voting records this session. And there were a number of Democrats who outscored Republicans.
Absolutely. And again, if you go back, Danielle, and you look at what these Republicans ran for office on, their themes, Brian Glorioso, the theme of his campaign, and we helped Brian.
Yeah.
We helped Brian get elected, as you recall. And the theme of his campaign was make Louisiana great again. And here you have him carrying Governor Landry's water throughout the session, sponsoring the cell phone bill. It was his bill to criminalize talking on a handheld cell phone in your car, despite a total lack of evidence, despite what it's going to lead to. That was his bill. We hit him hard for that, for authoring that. Just like we hit Pat McMath hard for co-sponsoring it on the Senate side.
Yeah.
So Brian Glorioso has been a very significant disappointment, as a first-year legislator.
First term
legislator, yeah.
Sophomore year. It was sophomore behavior. All right. Now for the Fs. At 59 were Jacob Broad or Jacob Bro, I'm not sure how you say it, and Joe Angeron down from my neck of the woods. I can say specifically for Joe, he voted the wrong way on every single carbon capture bill. Is that not right?
100% across the board.
Yeah. And then at 58, Stephanie Hilferty. 57, Beth Billings. 56, Neil Reiser. 55, Jeff Wiley. And I believe you commented earlier, he's in a similar district, an adjacent district to Representative Kathy Edmonston.
Yes, and I find it just really worth observing that 2 reps from Ascension Parish could have such Republicans could have such radically different scores. Kathy Edmonston, a 100, and Jeff Wiley ends up at a 55. His votes just across the board were outrageous. I mean, that's a fact. And it certainly didn't help him that he was the author of HB 148, Governor Landry's bill to make a czar out of our insurance commissioner and basically hold insurance companies hostage here in the state of Louisiana. That was his bill. So he got hit hard for that as well. I just think it's interesting that those scores would be so radically different when they're both from the same parish.
Yep. Well, Z Zarang is from my parish, and he is also scoring at 55. But Chris, can we run through? He's running for Terrebonne Parish Clerk of Courts, and I'd like to know how he voted on the election issues that matter to us.
Yep, Z Zarang. So he ends up with a 56, Danielle.
Oh, 56. I thought it was 55. Forgive me.
Okay, 55. I'm sorry. Yeah. So he votes, this is important, and I think, I'm glad we're doing this. HCR 1, Dixon McMakin's bill that reduces security in the ballot counting devices that we have by getting rid of the multi-factor authentication and the dual password. He voted for that, okay? He voted for that terrible resolution. He voted against SB 8, which I believe SB 8 was, I'll go back and look at that, but it didn't have to do with elections, but he voted against, it was one of Senator Morris's bills, I think having to do with ICE and the responsibility to report ICE, but that's not one of the election bills. But okay, so Zarang voted against Danny McCormick's bill not to discriminate against property owners who don't just voluntarily give their property up for carbon capture sequestration. You have to pay them just the same amount you do as people who volunteer. He voted against that bill. Of course, it had to do with carbon capture sequestration, so that doesn't surprise you, I'm sure. He voted the wrong way on HB 608, Kim Coates' geoengineering bill. He voted wrong on that. He voted wrong on Nancy Landry's HB 577 that gives her total authority when it comes to investing in the voting system. He voted for HB 206, which, as we said earlier, allows through a streamlined process the legislature to ratify illegal election agreements. He voted for that. He voted for, of course, he voted for the cell phone bill, the cockroach, as you affectionately like to call it. He voted for SB 80, Danielle, the free speech bill.
So he's running for clerk of courts, and he doesn't want citizens to have freedom of speech at the polling places.
Yeah, he voted, for those criminals, 70-year-old ladies up in Shreveport. He voted for that. He voted for, and all of the carbon capture sequestration bills, Danielle, as you said, every single one of them he helped kill in the House Natural Resources Committee.
The ones that would have protected people, not the bad ones.
Exactly. He voted, everything. I mean, it's just amazing to me what he.
But importantly to me, since he's running for clerk of courts, he supported all of Nancy Landry's legislation. Is that right? I mean, I see SB 80.
Everything.
Okay. Well, let the record stand. I think that might be important to draw out at some point. I know we're drawing it out now, but maybe we need to put it in a little more clear terms somehow.
Yeah. But Z Zarang voted for all of Nancy Landry's election legislation that makes us less secure and makes her less accountable. He voted to kill every single piece of legislation that would have protected property owners in Louisiana against this CCS onslaught. Yeah, he just was a profound disappointment, but he probably not surprising.
Yeah. At 54 was Paula Davis, and 52 was Polly Thomas. Now, Polly Thomas, in the last 2 years, has become a completely different voting element than she had been in her previous term. Is that not right, Chris? I mean, she used to vote very conservatively, and she has really been at the bottom of the barrel when it comes to her votes.
Yeah, very much so, but not this time. She voted the wrong way on almost every single thing. I mean, it was just she voted the wrong way on everything. And 2 points about her. She was on the committee that voted in favor of Dixon McMakin's bill to eviscerate the Republican parish RPEC. And basically allow all these statewide officials to be automatically appointed to the local Republican RPEC, and basically destroying the autonomy. She voted for that, and of course she voted against Kim Coates' geoengineering bill, and she voted for the cell phone bill. She voted for Governor Landry's bill on insurance. Everything, just about everything. She did the wrong thing on.
Yeah. I'll also mention that Representative Roy Adams, a Democrat, also scored a 52, which is still above quite a number of Republicans, and that's why I'm mentioning it. It was great to see that there were several Democrats who were breaking with the party line this session and voting their conscience, voting with their constituents, voting their conscience.
And you had a chance to tell Roy Adams that.
I sure did. It was very nice to meet him. He's a lovely gentleman.
Yeah. But also Thomas voted wrong on Brett Guyman's bill that would give local autonomy on solar development, which is a big deal to us.
Yeah, it is. Okay. At a score of 51, my state rep, Jessica Domingue, she voted the wrong way on, almost everything that mattered to us. I know she voted the wrong way on CCS. I know she was in the committee that voted against Ray Cruz's gold and silver bill.
Yep.
And you would have the rest of the record, but I'm sure she, at a score of 51, she couldn't have done too well on the election stuff either.
Nope. She voted for all of it, voted the wrong way on all of it, voted for everything Governor Landry wanted, voted for the cell phone bill, voted for, she just across the board. And so 2 things, big things that account for her bad grade. Her helping to kill Ray Cruz's gold and silver transactional bill, which is hugely important to Louisiana citizens, and voting against every single carbon capture sequestration bill that came through the House Natural Resources Committee. She's the only one who was not only present for every single vote, but voted the wrong way every single time. Even Zerang was absent once, I think. Reiser, I believe, might have been absent once. He might have been another one who voted the whole. Jacob Broad was either absent or voted against everything. But Domingue was there every single vote and voted the wrong way every single time, and criticized and was vocal about it.
Well, I'll just leave that right there. Also at a 51 was Jeremy Lacombe. So probably about the same in terms of his votes. And then at 50 was Timmy Chasson, who's a Democrat. So I just put him in there to make the point that there are 1, 2, 3, 4 Democrats who got a better score than the worst of the worst, Barbara Freiberg at 46. She even scored lower than Comrade Greg Miller. So I guess we should maybe call her Comrade as well.
Do you think that she would be a subordinate of Comrade Miller in the KGB?
No, I think she would be his boss, probably.
Oh, his boss, because
she scored worse.
Because lower is better in their
hierarchy. Yeah.
In their hierarchy, yeah. I think you're right. So it would be Comrade Greg Miller and Barbara Freiberg.
Freiberg. Very well played, Chris. All right. Well, let me play a quick ad, and then we're going to come back for some political updates. We're going to keep it kind of short because I know we've been on for a while, but this is really important because these people are going to be wanting to run for reelection, and it's incredibly important that people understand how they voted, and whether they had your back or they didn't. So let me just take us to a quick ad break, and then we will be right back. Meet the world's first living, full-spectrum, certified organic CBDA hemp extract. Nessus hemp oil was extracted from seed to bottle without chemicals, solvents, or heavy metals, and it surpasses world-class standards for purity. This pure and powerful CBDA has been proven to reduce aches and pains, ease mental tension, and promote better sleep. To get yours today, visit the Shop Our Partners page at freedomstate.us. All right. Well, Chris, one thing I wanted to make sure we talked about while we had an episode without a guest is the congressional redistricting that's happening all over the country. We've seen the battle. Texas is making massive headlines. Who's not making headlines about a battle for congressional redistricting is Louisiana in terms of executive force or assertion of power to redistrict. And I find that really disappointing, maybe not surprising because of the way that our whole congressional map went down at the beginning of Jeff Landry's tenure. But maybe would you just give us an update on a couple things? One, where do things stand with SCOTUS? Because I know that Paul Hurd is one of the attorneys of record on the congressional redistricting case for Louisiana. I think a friend of ours is a friend of ours. Is it Bert Calle is the plaintiff in that?
The lead plaintiff.
Amazing. So if you could give us an update on that, and then I think it's important for us to talk about what would it take for us to do some redistricting. Just the SCOTUS, the Supreme Court decision aside, because here we are, we're a deep red state, no matter what they tell, no matter what they want to say about it, with an overwhelmingly a 100% quote unquote Republican executive, a super majority of conservatives in the legislature. And you've said before, there never in history has a Republican legislature handed a congressional seat to a Democrat, number one, and least of all, whenever their own Congress member is the Speaker of the House of Representatives. So can we get into that for just a little bit? Because I think our state is in a super bizarre situation that can only be pointing to corruption. That's all I have to say. I mean, it has to point to corruption, because why would we not be moving in the same direction as Texas and Florida right now?
Yeah, that's exactly right. It makes no sense. This map that was drawn for Cleo Fields, SB 8 in 2024, was drawn because of pressure from Governor Landry. Let's just be straight about it. It was done because we believe, and a lot of people believe, that Cleo Fields pulled back helping the Democrat candidate who was running against Governor Landry for governor, did not pull out all of his political machinery in that race. In fact, shut it down. And that enabled Governor Landry to win that race in a primary. And I guarantee you there was some agreement between Cleo Fields and Landry along those lines. And it looks like Cleo's payback was Landry pressuring the legislature to go in and redraw a congressional map to allow Cleo Fields to be elected to the Congress. It was made for him, and it eliminated an existing Republican seat in order to do it. Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House at that time, Danielle, was appalled by what the legislature was doing and said, we don't need to surrender a Republican seat in Congress with a razor-thin Republican majority. Do you understand what you're toying with here? He said, go back in and fight for your current map. It's constitutional. Paul Hurd, the greatest constitutional scholar in the country when it comes to redistricting, said it's constitutional. Mike Johnson, who's no slouch when it comes to the Constitution, said it's constitutional. Go fight for your principles. Go into court and fight for this district. Don't cave in to a leftist federal Obama-appointed judge just because she orders you to do something. Article 1, Section 4 of the Constitution gives you the authority to draw this district, and you need to do it and fight for your principles. But they didn't. They caved in. They gave Cleo Fields this district. Ultimately, he's in the Congress now, giving as a nemesis to everything that MAGA stands for and everything that President Trump stands for. Well, Paul Hurd brought suit declaring this unconstitutional because it's a clear racial gerrymander. If you look at this on a map, Danielle, as we know, this thing extends from Caddo Parish up in Shreveport and the tip of Bossier all the way down to the east of Livingston. It is unbelievable. Goes all the way near Calcasieu, Avoyles Parish, comes down through through Livingston. It's unbelievable. So
I believe Paul Hurd called it the slash.
The slash. It's just a big slash. Paul Hurd said this is a classic racial gerrymander. This can't stand up. He testified to that in committee against them passing this, so they certainly knew about it. I testified against it. Bottom line is they pass it. Governor Landry signs it. Cleo Fields gets elected to the Congress. Meanwhile, Paul Hurd's filing suit, and it gets all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court. And right now, there's every reason to believe that the U.S. Supreme Court is going to strike this district down as an unconstitutional racial gerrymander. But not only that, Danielle, they may strike down the Voting Rights Act entirely, which is the statutory mechanism that has allowed all of this racial gerrymandering to occur to begin with. So, the basis for that statute was so that minority vote would not be diluted. So in order to make sure minority vote's not diluted, they're going all over the state and finding all these districts based strictly on race. So the Supreme Court's question now is, does the Voting Rights Act violate the Equal Protection Clause of the United States Constitution because it allows the drawing of districts based predominantly on race? And so it discriminates against people who are not of a certain race. And it looks like the U.S. Supreme Court is probably going to strike down not only Cleo's district, but going to declare that so many of these districts across the country that have been drawn using similar criteria are also unconstitutional.
Yeah. Yeah. And I believe Paul maybe made the argument, when do they stop being Black and start being Democrats? Because the mechanism that they're using to justify this is race. But we saw this past election with President Trump that a lot of people from every kind of background voted for President Trump. It wasn't dependent on race. So at some point, the Democrats are not going to have a leg to stand on, even when it comes to race, even if it seems like they do for a little while longer, perhaps in Louisiana.
Exactly. The problem we have now, Danielle, is that we have been urging, and so many people have been urging Governor Landry to call a special session right now to go in and either ratify the district that we had before this new district was drawn and present and use that map, the old map, or redraw a district that's not a constitutional gerrymander.
Yeah.
But they have to go now, because if they don't do anything, even when the Supreme Court vacates Cleo Fields' seat, there's not going to be a district there's not going to be enough time for the legislature to do what it needs to do in time for the Cleo Fields reelection. So guess what that means? That means he's going to go back into the U.S. Congress for 2 more years because our legislature did not act proactively to make sure that didn't happen. That is what is so unbelievable about what's going on now. They should be in a special session right now getting this done.
Yeah.
so that we can get this nemesis out of the U.S. Congress. The guy who voted against prohibiting men from competing in girls' sports in the Congress, the guy who voted against requiring medical protection for unborn children who survive an abortion, voted against immediately deporting any illegal immigrant that is responsible for a crime of violence. I think it's the Laken Riley Act. He voted against that. It's just across the board. Cleo Fields a nemesis. Our Republican legislature put him there, and now they won't do what's necessary to make sure that he doesn't get to go back.
Yeah. So what people need to do in order to exert some pressure on the legislature is to go to LeCag and take action. I know, Chris, you have a call to action up. We need the legislature to call itself into special session if Jeff Landry won't do it. And it has to happen before what? It has to happen before September 15th.
Yes, absolutely. They've got to get in there and do this. And so please go to lacag.org and hit Action Center, and you do this call to action on redistricting. And while you're up there, do the other calls to action. We have 3 or 4 others up there. They don't take long to do, all very, very important issues. But this redistricting, if you had told me, Danielle, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, that a Republican-dominated legislature would surrender a congressional seat to a leftist Democrat and eviscerate one of their own Republican seats, and then when he gets up there and he does all these horrible things, they won't go in and make it right. I'm stunned by this, and maybe I shouldn't be, but I do want to say this, and this is important. This is really important on the redistricting. I want everybody. I think it's important for people to know how the senators voted on this, and I'm going to go through it very, very quickly. It won't take me long to do it. Where is this thing? The following Senate Republicans joined all Senate Democrats in the Louisiana legislature in voting to send Cleo Fields, a Democrat, to the U.S. Congress and eliminate a Republican seat in the U.S. Congress. Here they are. Here's how they did it. Cameron Henry, Mark Abraham, Heather Cloud, Pat Connick, J.P. Couson, Rick Edmonds, Henskins, Hodges, Klein Peter, McMath, Miguez, Mazel, Owen, Reese, Stein, Wheat, and Womack. All those Republicans joined every Senate Democrat to get a majority vote to give Cleo Fields this district when they did not have to do that. They caved in and they didn't fight. And I would like to find out why that occurred. We think we know because of pressure from the governor. And we would also like to know why we're not hearing a word from any of them demanding that they go back into session and make this right, because this does not serve 70-80% of Louisiana citizens who are absolutely opposed to everything Cleo Fields represents and stands for.
Yeah, well said, Chris. Well said. It's how many legislators are needed to get the legislature into special session?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that, but it certainly, if every Republican wanted to get in there, which they should, there wouldn't be a problem, right? We can find out the number. I don't know if it's a majority or 2/3. But either way, I mean, it shouldn't be an issue. And you would think that they would have even more of an impetus to get in there and do the right thing, knowing what's going to be coming down soon from the U.S. Supreme Court, declaring
today. We have a reminder My show, For the Love of Freedom, is usually on Wednesdays. I was going to have Sean Taylor on yesterday at 10 a.m. Unfortunately, his internet got knocked out by bad weather, so we have rescheduled to tomorrow at 10 a.m. So please join us. We're going to get into a little bit of his backstory and what gave him the backbone to stand up and the interest in digging into all the corruption he's been finding. And then on Tuesday, we will have one of the U.S. Senate candidates, Sammy Wyatt, will be joining us for a discussion on his candidacy. We're going to ask him the same questions we asked John Fleming, and we hope to get every Senate candidate onto the show. If you know any of the Senate candidates and you're interested in having them come on the show, feel free to make them know that they should come on the show. We're extending invitations.
We have asked or are in the process of asking every Senate candidate to come on the State of Freedom for a discussion. All of them.
Yeah, I think it's important. This is going to be a big race. Obviously, we want Senator Bill Cassidy to be Dr. Cassidy once again. So it's going to take a lot of us understanding who people, what people stand for, where people stand, and getting out to vote.
Yeah. But these are big issues here, Danielle, and I encourage everybody to go to lacag.org, Action Center, view scorecard, and you can see all the votes of all the reps and senators, especially and including your own, very easily. But there's no doubt that these rankings are accurate based upon a composite of what's important to Louisiana citizens. And it took us a long time to get it together, but I think it's very accurate. I also want to encourage people to support LACAG, LACAG.org, and especially to support and subscribe to the State of Freedom, because we truly are the voice of liberty in the state of Louisiana, uncompromising and uncensored. And it's good to be along for this ride, Danielle. What a trip.
It is. And we're learning more and more every day.
Learning more every day. God bless you, Danielle, and God bless the State of Freedom.
Yeah, God bless you, Chris. Sorry. Thanks for joining us today on the State of Freedom. Be sure and check out the show notes for this episode. You can always go there and find the calls to action and resources mentioned in the show, and you can find out more information about our advertisers there as well. If you want to learn more about us or support our work, visit freedomstate.us. To get involved with Louisiana Citizen Advocacy Group, visit lacag.org. We'll see you next time. God bless.